Hey there, welcome to Life Extension Live. I'm Dr. Mike, that's
Dr. Crystal.
Today we're going to be talking about a very important compound for you. It's called creatine.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say it right off the bat. And you're probably thinking, I've heard of this. It's some sort of protein thing. It's done in a lot of bodybuilders. But here's the thing, Dr. Crystal, it's not just for athletes and bodybuilders.
Very true. It's trending. It's all over the place. So this is something else you're probably seeing on your timeline. Everyone's wondering why? Why is this the hot topic? And it's because we're realizing that almost everyone can benefit from creatine.
So on today's show, here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about why you need it, what it is, why you need to know about it, and why it isn't just for athletes. So we're gonna prove all this out for them today, Dr. Crystal.
Right.
All right, so let's get started. We got to nice and simple. What is it? What is creatine exactly?
Yeah, it's a combination of 3 amino acids. So very similar to a protein, but just not as many amino acids. So there's arginine, glycine, and methionine.
Yeah.
And it is providing tons of energy to the cell.
So a lot of people call it a non-protein compound or something like that. We're not going to get wrapped up into all that, how it's exactly classified. At the end of the day, this 3 amino acid protein, non-protein, whatever you want to call it, has some powerful effects in the human body, and that's why we wanted to talk about it today. So let's go into, you wanted to mention something that it's not, though.
Oh, so what we're not talking about creatinine. That is something that you see. Your routine lab test will have a marker. It's a part of your chemistry panel called creatinine. It's that's a marker of kidney function. Yeah. That's not what we are referring to. This is
totally different.
Creatine.
Yeah,
yes.
Totally different. So let's talk about what it actually does to the body. The first thing, and this is why the athletes are so interested in the bodybuilders, because it plays a direct role in the production of ATP, which is cellular energy. We have a little picture of that. Thank you, Hannah, for throwing that up. So if you look at this, we're not going to focus on all this. I want you to focus to the left of that graph, and you see that little pink P. You see that, Dr. Crystal?
That's a phosphate.
That's a phosphate. What creatine does is it gives a phosphate into this ATP creation cycle that occurs inside the mitochondria.
Yes. And during performance, whenever you are engaging in performance, and this is how it became so popular as a sport performance nutrient, is because you are making more cells. ATP, that is the energy source of the cell, and so it's what's needed for the body to run and function.
Right. And here's what's really cool about it is when you have creatine on board and you are exercising, and again, it doesn't need to be the extremes and stuff like that, there's a higher demand for the ATP production, right? And so if you don't have something to feed into that, guess what happens to you? You get a little tired. You got one more mile to go and you're like, I think that was enough. But what creatine does for you is it keeps this cycle churning, keeps that ATP production high, so you can finish that exercise that you're doing.
Yes.
Great for muscles. But here's the thing. This is why I think it's so important, right? That if everybody look again at that ATP production graphs, that graph right there happens in every single cell.
So then you start thinking, okay, it's great for muscles, but what about other cells like liver cells? What about heart cells?
All of that, yeah.
It's just ATP is necessary.
We talk about living forever-ish. That's what, as a matter of fact, that's our podcast that we do. One of the things we talk about there a lot is cell energy production. Yeah. If your cells can't have a nice production of ATP throughout your life, it's going to be hard for those cells and then that organ and then those tissues and then ultimately you to function.
Right. But one thing the reason the focus is more on performance or just energy specifically with your muscle cell is because that is the site where over 90% of that creatine is going to be stored.
Right,
so the
right.
muscles really need it because they can't, they can't make the creatine.
Right. And also part of our Live Foreverish, Dr. Crystal, how often do we talk about muscle health? I mean, that's almost every episode we get muscle health into that show or into that podcast. So keeping your muscles, that lean muscle mass at a nice level throughout your life. It goes along with living a little longer and a lot stronger. See, you bought into it. You like our tagline for the podcast. Okay, but what does that mean now? So if you're watching this and you saw all that, and you get it. Okay, energy production. Yeah, that sounds great. Ultimately, what does that mean to my body, Dr. Crystal?
Yeah, we have a nice list that really gives us kind of those details of those benefits. So as we kind of went into detail on lean muscle mass, performance, and capacity, particularly when combined with resistance training. And so what we mean by performance and capacity, it means more loads, more reps, more sets. As you mentioned, I think going that extra mile.
Or just finishing your routine.
Just better recovery between sets if you are working out. Or if you're not working out, that means better recovery if you are transporting soil to your garden, you're loading something, or maybe you're unloading groceries from your car.
Right.
That means that you're not, you just have the energy to kind of
to do that.
I
like you brought that in. Because again, at the get-go, we said this is not just all for athletes. This can be beneficial to all of us, especially as we age, for completing some of that stuff that we enjoy. Some people love to be out there and gardening and working on their yard, but that gets hard to do as you get older, and part of it because you just don't have the energy.
Exactly. So you're just able to do more.
I love that. That's really cool. And then what's interesting in this, it does, there is some hydration benefit, but the last one there was interesting, right? Brain and mood. Yeah. What do you think about that?
Those are new areas of research. There's some animal data, some human data, in some younger individuals that potentially improves cognition, may also be helpful with certain mental health concerns. So these are areas of research that Life Extension is keeping an eye on.
Right.
We are our researchers. We're staying on top of this research, and when we come to a place where we feel fully confident, we probably can bring a research update to you. But we are seeing at some higher doses some of those brain benefits, and when we say higher doses, 10 grams, even 20.
And we're going to get into dosing and all that coming up. That just so you know, that is a high dose. So we'll keep tabs on that, and we'll see how it plays out, Dr. Crystal. That's part of science. That's what we do, right? We observe, we watch, we test,
Well, and I think that's what's making creatine, if we go all the way back to the beginning, that's what's making creatine so popular right now, because this is something, it's already a nutrient. When you look at the big scheme of nutritional research, is one of the most heavily researched nutrients. So we have a lot of data, but we're seeing more data on the brain, on the mood, on bones. So I think the researchers now are saying, okay, let's get these studies going.
Let's get going. And let's work this out and get all those research proven benefits laid out and published. Yeah. So I think you're going to see a lot more on this. So Dr. Crystal, someone's watching this. All right, so I got to get more creatine in my system. We always like to go to food first. What's your thoughts there?
Well, absolutely. Meat, fish are going to be your primary sources of creatine in your diet. So what that means is if you are limiting those foods, maybe you're following our 80-20, then you may not be meeting those creatine requirements. You're also thinking if you're a vegetarian or a vegan, then you may not be getting as much. But we do know you can make creatine in the body about 50%. The other 50% you're going to need to get from your diet. And unfortunately, we have a trial here that showed, and it's kind of looking at survey data for creatine responders. The average creatine intake was well below. About 42.8 of participants were found to have dietary creatine intake below expected levels of about 1 gram per day. This is from the diet, and that's over 9,000 participants. So, you can get it from your diet,
but we're not.
But we're not.
A lot, at least close to 42%. And this is just one study of 9,000 people, right? Mm-hmm. Who knows what the actual number is if you expand it out all over the country. And so, getting more in your system. But Dr. Crystal, though, I'm not moving away from the 80-20 rule. Look at every plate, 80% plant-based, 20% protein, which means really supplementation is key here.
Yes, and adding in those add-ins again, because we are seeing the research suggesting deficiency at the population level.
So let's move this now into the supplement form, right? So if somebody is following the 80-20 rule and they want to get a little bit more, I got to tell you, even if you are eating more than the 80-20 rule, you're getting more meats and fish. Mm-hmm. I still think there's a benefit for supplementation with this to really rev up that energy production, muscle health, and everything like you said. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. Add-ins, nutritional add-ins can be very supportive to just make sure you're meeting those requirements. But, you kind of have to take an evaluation of your diet as well to see what you are intaking. But I would say this as well. If you are kind of looking at the bone health benefits and some of those other emerging areas of research, then you probably do need to add it in.
Because even like the early brain mood research was higher dosing than what we're about to get into. So we move into the supplement forms. If you go out there and you start looking, there's 3 basic creatine forms, right? Mm-hmm. You got a monohydrate form. You have a phosphate form, and you have a citrate form, right? Mm-hmm. Those are going to be the 3 most common you'll find on the shelves, right? Mm-hmm. And we personally, based on the research and the fact that it's the most researched form, based on its safety, based on how it works, the efficacy, we believe it's the monohydrate form.
Yes, and so then the next thing is to think about dosing, and then of course we'll share some tips on taking it. And so for everyday maintenance, you want to consider about 2 to 5 grams per day. 5 grams seems to be that sweet spot.
That's about, so 2 to 5, maybe push it closer to the 5. Yeah. Right?
Right.
Take that scoop and do a little more, something like that. So that's the maintenance, 2 to 5. Now, here's the thing. If you start going online and you start looking at, how to take creatine, what's my dose, you really got to look at what you're reading and who wrote it and what that audience is, right? Because if you're reading a blog or something that is written by a bodybuilder towards really other bodybuilders, they're going to be telling you to do a lot more than the 2 to 5 grams.
Right. Well, there are different protocols. And so I think what you're referring to, most of the bodybuilders, or some of them are doing this loading dose.
They do a loading,
20, 30 grams per day for about 4 days. And what they're trying to do is just build up those creatine stores as fast as possible.
Yeah.
And that's not really necessary. You could just...
Unless you're a bodybuilder, maybe. I don't know what. But if you're just like me and Dr. Crystal, and we're just trying to we're trying just to live forever-ish.
Get a little extra help.
Yeah. You don't need to do that loading thing. Just 2 to 5 grams per day. Start there. Maintain it. That's all that you really need. You wanted to go over some tips for how to do this, right?
Right. So divided doses. Now, first, if you are doing your loading dose, because you never know.
Some people might try. Okay,
watching.
you're right. Yeah.
If you're doing your loading dose, divide it up. We do know that creatine, as it's going into the cell or that tissue, is bringing water with it. So it can increase water weight, which for muscles, that's a good thing.
It becomes
an anabolic stressor and helps with the growth of that muscle. But if it's not something that you want, then divide up the dose. So that's one thing. If you're doing the 5 grams, that should be okay to just take that full 5 grams all at once. But if you want to split it up, you can split it up and maybe 2 doses. You may find some lower dose creatine options out there. You don't want to take less than 1 gram. 1 gram has not been shown to kind of sufficiently increase the blood level. So you do want to at least 1.5 at a time. But really, you could just do, if you're at the 5 gram dose,
you could do it all, right?
It's perfectly fine to do that.
You don't need to worry about all that water stuff. I mean, we're really talking about those higher loading doses and stuff like that. And for a lot of people, I know for me, I like convenience. If I can do it once, I'm doing it once.
Yes.
Just because I know I'm going to forget most likely that second one. Mm-hmm. I just know me.
Yes.
So you know who you are, right? Do whatever is easiest for you. Because it brings up another point. All of this stuff Dr. Krista and I talk about, whether it's protein or creatine or other types of nutrients and add-ins, you got to be compliant and consistent.
Well, I think that's the biggest problem that people
deal
huge
with problem.
In life.
Yeah.
But definitely when it comes to their nutritional add-ins, and I deal with it as well. I mean, if I have to be very specific, sometimes setting a timer. I told you my husband has a timer to take his nighttime supplements because life gets busy.
You just get busy and you forget. Yeah.
It
happens. That's fine. That's normal. We're human.
Yeah.
We get tired at the end of the day. We don't go to bed.
Yeah, but you can take it on an empty stomach, morning, night. The best thing is to be consistent and mix it with anything if you're using a powder.
And again, if you're at the athlete level, bodybuilder level, there's a whole nother debate about whether you should do creatine before you work out, after you work out. Go ahead and read that stuff. It's interesting. But again, if you're like me, I think I don't know, maybe you are a pre-pull. I don't know. I don't worry about that. It's 5 grams. Take it. I'm done.
Yeah, I just take it to keep my creatine stores locked and loaded.
Locked and loaded.
That's where I am. I don't try to worry about the pre or the post. But, if you are active, if a lot of women, especially the perimenopausal, menopausal women, are getting into lifting and doing some weightlifting, and you want to try creatine before your workout and just see how you feel.
Go for it.
I would say try it out. And if you feel like, you can lift more, then there you have it. You can add that into your pre-workout.
And another thing that you might see too in some of the blogs that are out there, some of the information, there's also, I think, another debate about, whether you should do creatine every day or should you take breaks. I think, for us, the consensus, as a matter of fact, we have the International Society of Sports Nutrition. They kind of looked at all the different studies out there, and they've decided that short-term, long-term, doesn't matter. It's safe and effective.
Oh, yes. You can take it every day. No need for a break.
So there you go. Creatine, we believe it's all about living a little longer, but a lot stronger, right? Great for muscle health, a lot of research on other organ systems, bone, brain, etc. We do think this is a great addition to your regimen, so it's something that you should consider.
And one quick thing, I wanted to make sure we made this point that if you're not physically active, creatine is still a good option because it can help to preserve what you have.
Absolutely. I like that, the creatine, and then you can even throw in there some of the branched chain amino acids and stuff. These are protein compounds or non-protein, whatever. I'm not going to get into that. That you can take even if you're not active, because there are studies show that they still benefit the muscles. They still benefit energy. So this is something that I would have loved to have given my dad. My dad would have never done. He didn't do anything. Remember, I told you the story. The only thing my dad wanted was the red wine supplement, which was resveratrol years and years ago. He would never take anything from me, but I think he would have benefited so much, even when he was in his 70s. Just a little more energy, a little more muscle, So it is something you can do.
Yes.
If you go to lifeextension.com/education, you can check out a whole bunch of other information that we have there on a variety of different topics. There's the blogs on there. There's our podcast on there. There's health quizzes. There's just a ton of things for you to interact with. So check that out at lifeextension.com/education. And when you're at Life Extension, shop around. When you check out, use the discount code POD.
No!
Oh, no!
I almost said podcast.
Cut. It's a live show.
LE Live.
Yes, LE. See, it gets hard, doesn't it? LE Live. You'll get 10% off, $50 more plus free shipping and handling. Again, that's at lifeextension.com, LE Live. Don't forget, we go live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern time. So wherever you watch us on, we're on multiple different channels. Like it, subscribe, interested, whatever that button is, the bell, the thumbs up, so you always know when we're about to go live. I'm Dr. Mike. That's
Dr. Crystal.
We'll see you next Wednesday.